Well, hello everyone. Welcome, welcome. Happy Thursday. Give me a thumbs up in the chat if you guys can hear me and if you can see me okay. I have to let you know I'm testing out the ultra low latency setting in Ecamm, or actually I should say in the native YouTube live stream settings to see if it helps with that real-time connection. So hopefully it's not requiring too much bandwidth, but good to see everybody. Good morning, good afternoon to you all. Thanks, Gwen. Appreciate that. And if anything changes throughout the stream, if you start to notice there's a degradation in quality, just let me know in the chat. Sadly, I don't think I can adjust that setting, but I'll know for future streams to make sure I don't pick that setting. So I'm pretty sure it's all bandwidth related. But yeah, I hope everyone's having a great start to your day. And if you're um, here for the edits, we're going to do basically like an editing overview tutorial. We're going to use CapCut as the demonstration because that's what I use for editing. But I will tell you that you do not need to use CapCut to follow a lot of the principles that I use when I do my edits. And of course, this is just my humble opinion on how I do my editing. And if you're brand new to YouTube, if you're brand new to editing, there might be some useful information in here. And of course, if you're already editing your own videos and you've got a good system in place, more power to you. I'd love to hear your feedback if there's anything that you're doing that you think I might benefit from. And I'm just going to kind of walk you guys through very high level, a simple editing workflow that I've been using to just hopefully get through my edits a bit quicker. I will tell you, I will confess up front that I still take a long time to edit. I don't think there's really any um, secrets or silver bullets or quick tips to make your editings that much faster. I think there's just little small efficiency gains that you can pick up here and there to help out with the edit. But I will just walk you through how I do it. I'll take a simple movie file, some A-roll footage. I'm going to throw it into CapCut, and then I'll just kind of walk you through the different passes that I do. The way I think about editing, and I'm actually going to make a long form video dedicated to this topic, but I almost think about it like, to use an analogy, almost like setting the table. And so, step one is to clear the table and give yourself a clean environment to work within. And that's setting up a brand new project, loading in your stuff, and then taking intentional passes through the file, through the project, doing different tasks along the way. So, starting from the very beginning of the clip, going all the way to the end of the clip, and then coming back to the beginning, and then doing more treatment along the way. So, with that said, um, welcome to those of you who are just now joining. Good morning, Judd. Hey, Rachel. We've got Don in the chat. We've got Rain and Bill. Good to see you guys. And Gwen as well. So, yeah, if you guys have any questions too, as I go through any of this, I'll keep my eyes on the chat. And if there's anything I'm doing that you want more clarity around, or if there's a question, just throw it in the chat and I'll do my best to answer it. And of course, if there's more advanced things that you are asking about or curious about, if I have any knowledge in that department, I'll be sure to do my best to answer that question or even give you a demo of how I might do it. But I'm certainly no expert. I've been doing YouTube for 10 months and I've been editing my own videos for 10 months. Some videos I spend 15 to 20 hours editing, and some videos I say, screw it, I don't want to edit at all. And I just sort of treat the sound and the color, and that's pretty much it. And then I post it. So if you're thinking about editing as like this super daunting task, I get it because it can be, and it depends on how you want to present. I'm going to show you a really simple version of a recent video that I just posted, actually two videos that I just posted that were very no frills and very easy to edit. And maybe that's inspiring to you to, follow along those lines and, make a video that doesn't require a whole ton of editing. So yeah, Monique, 15 to 20 hours, been there. Yeah, and I think you make a great point. So Monique says basically if you're not doing B-roll, 2 hours for a 20-minute video, and then if you're adding B-roll, it can take another 4 hours. And I think there's a lot of truth to that, right? It depends on like how much visual flourish you want to include in your video. And in some cases, it might be required to help with storytelling, and in other cases, it might just be I don't know, it might be filler. It might be something that you don't actually need. And it really just depends on the content itself, like what you're communicating and how powerful a message you're delivering. And then also, of course, your niche is very important. So I would imagine for someone like Rachel, who's in the chat, if she's making a video, she could certainly make a straight talking head video. But if she wants to do a demonstration and show people about her houseplants and how she's taking care of them, it might behoove her to take some B-roll of those houseplants or take some footage of her working with those houseplants as a way to illustrate what her points are. So, yeah, so we'll get into all that here in a second. And if you guys have questions, just throw them in there. I see 60 plus and Sophie has joined. Good morning. Welcome. Judd is on your PC laptop, just wondering if you know, is the MS editing software decent to edit with? That's a good question. I don't know. I use a Mac and I've been using CapCut. Is that the native software, Judd, that comes with a Windows machine? If so, I have not used it, so I don't know how good it is. I will tell you, some people on Macs will start out with iMovie, and I'm pretty sure iMovie is very basic, and there's certain things you can do with it. But if anyone has any experience with the Windows version of that, um, let Judd know because I certainly don't. Yeah. And Rachel says if you have to edit after the B-roll, then you have to move it. Yeah, there's a lot of timing and alignment issues that come into play. So cool. If you guys have questions, throw them in the chat. I'll queue those up. I'll keep an eye on the chat. Let me just show you. I'm going to switch screens here in a second. We'll go to, we'll just go full in on, this is my CapCut. I think you guys can see this pretty well. Actually, let me just zoom in one more here. So hopefully that's visible to you guys. Let me know if it's easy or hard to see. But this is my CapCut. I don't use the web browser version. I use the dedicated app. Again, I'm working off my MacBook. And these are all my different projects. So as you can see, I've got over, 80 different YouTube videos that I've edited here in CapCut so far. And each one you can see is its own represented like thumbnail, like sort of tile, and you can click into each project. So let me show you an example of a recent video that I posted to my channel that didn't take a lot of editing. And this is something I would encourage you guys to consider. If you're finding that you're spending way too much time editing videos and the prospect of making more videos is like, oh, it's like dreadful. I don't want to make a video because I don't want to spend hours and hours editing it. I totally get where you're coming from because I feel that constantly. Um, it's perfectly okay to take a break from editing and just make a video where it's just you talking and trying to get out whatever you're trying to get out, and maybe just do it in a single take if you are up for the challenge. Here's an example of a video where I did it in a single take. And I actually told the viewers in the video, I'm doing this in a single take. And so if I make a mistake, I'm going to keep it in there. I'm going to let you see all the imperfections. And I think there's some freedom in that when you tell people that don't expect perfection. It can take some of the pressure off when you go to film. So anyways, that's just me blabbing about this particular one. To the extent that I edited this video, I essentially sat down in my normal filming in the kitchen area where I normally film my videos. Here's what I did do on this one. I recorded my intro and then that was it. So it was like a quick, I don't know, 30-second intro or whatever it was. And then I did do one cut where I cut out some dead space in between the intro into where I was actually talking about all of the different stuff in the video. And this was a 20-minute video, essentially. So I just rambled for 20 minutes, but I did have my notes on my laptop, and my laptop was positioned just beneath the camera. So you can't see it in the frame here, but I had my notes on my laptop and they were just bullet points. And I would just glance down periodically to reference what the next thing was to talk about. And I did my best to stay on track. There were some times where there was some gaps between moving from point to point, but I left all those gaps in because I think sometimes it's okay to show people that you're not trying to be overly polished and you're not trying to be perfect. It helps your viewer to connect with you. They get to see you as a regular person and not this like YouTube persona that's like trying to be all perfect all of the time. So that's pretty much it. The only treatment I did, and I didn't do any cuts, I didn't edit out any mistakes or filler words, just the one gap in between the intro and the rest of the video is the only thing I cut out. But what I did do on this particular A-roll clip is I just color treated it because sometimes with my iPhone, it doesn't always get the best color. And what I do in CapCut, and you may be able to do this in other editing software, is there's filters up here and you can pick different color profiles. So the one that I like is called Clear 2. And all I do is I click and drag that onto my A-roll, and then it automatically applies this color treatment to the A-roll. So I'll just show you really quick what it looks like when I don't have that applied. So here's what it looks like without the color treatment. And then here's what it looks like when I treat it. You can kind of see, and I don't treat it all the way. I just basically put it up to like maybe 40 or 50%. So it's kind of a subtle, it's almost like saturating the colors a little bit, making them a little more vibrant. So that's the only edit there. And that's super quick and super easy to do. And then for the audio, I normally will export the audio out from the video clip into its own audio track. I will make it a compound clip, and then I will treat it for both normalization. I'll enhance it, and I'll reduce the noise. And so now if you're in a different program, you might not have those options. You might have more control, like in something like DaVinci, you might have a lot more control over the EQ settings, compressors, limiters, all of that's fun stuff. That's a little bit over my head. But in CapCut, they make it really easy to just click little boxes to essentially treat your audio. And what I found is that for the most part, the treatment just by clicking those boxes works pretty well. So it'll increase the levels, it'll normalize them for YouTube, and then it'll also kind of remove out any background noise or any noise that's getting into the signal as well. So I like to do that with all my videos, and I think it sounds relatively good. And then the only other thing I've done on this video was I pulled in these text boxes that you can see right here. So this sort of like lower third text box. And this is just a way for me to help guide the viewer so they know which section of the video that they're in. So the video is broken into 3 sections. Section 1 is the hard requirements of YouTube monetization. The next one was the shortcuts to get there faster. And then the third one was just some interpersonal skills that I was mentioning in the video that I think help people get to monetization quicker. So all I did was create simple text boxes that stay there at the bottom of the screen so that any given time the viewer knows where they are in the video. And that's it. That's the only editing I did on this video. It probably took me, I don't know, like a half hour total to edit this thing, maybe less. So that's an example of making a video for your channel that is you just delivering what you think is valuable content to your viewer to help them out with a problem that they might be having or to give them some information that they might find useful, but not spending a lot of time editing. And yeah, this video might not be the flashiest video on my channel. It might not get the most views, but that's okay because the goal of this video was really just to help people who are starting out on YouTube understand some of the things that they might want to think about as they're working towards monetization. So that's the example of a really simple edit. Now, of course, let me show you some examples of way more complex edits. And, these are also fun to do, but they're also really time consuming. And so let's use this one. So you can see here, there's a lot of stuff going on. And a lot of these are compound clips, which means there's actually more going on under the hood. Oh, I see Deb has joined. Hey, Deb, how are you? And Ted, good to see you guys. Welcome, welcome. So with respect to some of these more edited videos where you're pulling in a lot of B-roll, you're doing a lot of motion graphics or text overlays or sound effects, again, it's almost like less is more in a way. Sometimes the more you add, the more clutter you create for your viewer, the more visual noise you create for your viewer. So it's sometimes easy to get carried away and it's hard to almost know how to strike that right balance. But this comes with practice. It comes with repetition and, editing week in and week out. But you'll notice here there's some text coming in. Let me show you here. There's some captions at the beginning. There's B-roll. There's more text. There's kind of like a title card where I'm talking about what I'm going to talk about on the video. There's other kind of landmarks to let the viewer know, hey, we're moving into a new section. And then again, more B-roll. And I kind of went through the whole video and I tried to tighten up the pacing. I pulled out a lot of the filler, a lot of the dead air in between segments, and I tried to keep it as short as possible so that people would want to stay on the video and watch for longer. Because sometimes when there's a lot of dead space, then you can lose retention. So it just depends on the video you're making, who you intend it for, and if you want it to be a more fast-paced video. Now, of course, depends on your niche, it depends on your audience and what they prefer. But this is just an example of what a project might look like if you're adding a lot of visual flourish and even sound effects. And in this case, I'm actually using a music bed as well. So Ninad, if you're out there, one of our community members, he made some nice lo-fi music for me using Suno, and I brought that into my project. And that also is a whole completely separate art form, is layering in music and sound effects, and that can take up a lot of time to get it right. So I don't encourage brand new people to try and do this style of editing until you feel like you really want to work up to it and you really want to advance those skills. But this can take, 15, 20 hours. And at the end of the day, compare this video to the other video I just showed you in terms of effort made. Who knows if this one's going to get more views than the other one? It very likely won't. So it just depends on how much time you have to spend and balancing high effort versus what I consider low effort or low friction videos. So this is just to show you kind of what a project might look like. A lot of stuff in here, a lot of moving parts. Yeah, Rachel says less is more. I agree. And I think Ted makes a good point too. Let me just come back to Ted's comment. So he goes, I think it depends on the niche and how professional you want the videos to appear, just my opinion. And that's a really good observation because if you are a channel that's been on YouTube for many years, and we were actually Rachel and I were talking about this yesterday, actually, there's like two ways of thinking about it. Do you want to be this professional channel that has like this business persona that shows up with polish and edit and sophistication and everything is scripted to a T? If so, that's fine. You can treat it like a business, like you want to be seen as a business and have that level of sophistication. You may appeal to a broad audience. You may appeal to a lot of beginners who might find you instantly credible based on how you present. But the downside is you might not be able to bring your personality out and you might not show up as authentically as you otherwise would if you made videos that were far less scripted and far less edited and far less polished, because some niches really benefit from creators who are just themselves, who just show up on camera, who chit chat with people, who yeah, she says corporate sucks. um that's funny. So I think there's a balance there, right? And sometimes it's hard to know how to strike that balance of showing up as yourself with your personality coming out authentically, talking about your personal experience, talking about what's going on in your life and how you felt about something. Certainly, a more sophisticated channel might not have that, I don't know, privilege to be able to do that without maybe turning some viewers away. But I think as smaller creators or smaller channels, we have that luxury of letting our personalities come out and not having to overly rely on edit and polish and over scripting. And that might pull more people in, right? They might relate to us more on a human level. They might get to know us. So there's definitely some advantages to that. So Deb is asking, why do I remove the audio from the A-roll? Um, I don't know. It's a good question. I think it's just so I can see it visually, and then I can treat it by its. I can still treat it if it's in the A-roll clip. Um, I'm trying to think. I don't think there's really an advantage necessarily. If there is one, I'm completely drawing a blank, Deb. But yeah, I think it's just to help clean up the project a little bit and let me see things at a different tracks in the project. And then also to make sure like I can see the waveforms, and looking at the waveforms visually here, I can see that it's normalized. I can see that it's already been treated. But you can certainly keep it in the A-roll clip. You don't have to actually pull it out. So let me show you what it might look like if I were to start a brand new edit. So first things first, in CapCut, and you can, every software, you're going to have your own version of this. You're going to create a brand new project. And then here's an empty project. And then what I'll do first is I'll bring in my A-roll clip. And so essentially what I'll have done in advance is after I'm done recording, I will essentially airdrop from my smartphone my A-roll clip, which is the talking head video, put it onto my MacBook, and then I will file it. So let me find my A-roll here. This one. So here is my A-roll. And this is just the raw movie file from my iPhone. So we'll drag this guy in. And now we have got our A-roll right here. And this is the full raw, unedited thing so far. So we're gonna, number one is change the track height. I like to make it tall so I can see more of it. And then we will make the waveform basically 100% because I like to see the waveform. But again, to Deb's point, if we're extracting out the waveform, then it doesn't really matter. So you'll see it's over 20 minutes. And then I think the first thing I will do is I will look for the dead space at the very beginning of it, and I'll look for the dead space at the very end of it, and then I will trim all of that out. So we'll just zoom in here. And what's great about this is you can see the waveform, and you can see basically right here is when I start talking. And you'll see there's more dead space right here as well. Let me actually move Deb's comment. So hopefully you guys can see this a little bit better. So you can see there's some dead space. This eventually will get trimmed out. So this is basically what I do at the very beginning. I'll just kind of eyeball it. See, okay, where am I going to start talking? Maybe like right here. Make sure your clip is selected. And then for CapCut users, it's going to basically be Control B or Command B to cut that. But for other users in other software, just use your key commands, or you can use whichever icon represents making a cut. So now that you've made a cut, you've got the two sections here, the one on the left, which is the dead section, and the one on the right, which is what we're going to keep. So I'll just highlight that one and delete it out. And now we've trimmed the first part of the video. Then I'll go to the very end. We'll zoom in here and we'll do the same thing. We'll just trim out the beginning and the end. Just do right here and delete. And that's pretty much it. Now, if you're brand new, that might be the only thing you need to do. If you're fresh on YouTube and you're just getting started and you just want to get a video posted and you don't want to worry about, trying to trim things out to improve the pacing, you just want to get rid of that first bit and the last bit. And then, you may just want to treat the audio, make sure the levels are high enough, and then you're good to go. You can export it and you can upload it. Now, for those of you who are a little bit more advanced, who are a little bit more tenured and seasoned with editing, and you got a few videos already posted to YouTube, now you might consider going through the video and looking for dead air and looking for ways to trim it up. So this might be a section here, right? But again, going back to Ted's point, it just depends on, do you want to have that style of video where there's really no space in between you talking? And some people will leave literally no space from sentence to sentence, and that shortens the video, which is a good thing, but it can sometimes be too quick for certain viewers. So if your viewer prefers a more, a slower explanation, then you might not want to delete out all of this dead air. But in this case, I deleted out this section here because this was a lot of dead air. This is probably like, I don't know, this is maybe almost 10 seconds of dead air, which would not be appropriate for the video. So what I'll do here is I'll just find the point that I want to start a trim, and then I'll just shorten it up by clicking and dragging. And now I've got, this is effectively my intro here, and this is where I get into the actual video itself. So for this video, that was the only editing I've done. But one thing I might recommend for those of you who are experiencing maybe low retention on some of your videos is follow this path. So pass number one for me is after you get your A-roll into your project, like I have, is doing that initial trim on the front and on the back, and then just going through the whole project kind of like bit by bit and just looking at all the dead space. So, for example, if this is something you want to cut out, again, Control B or Command B, and then trim it. If this is something you want to come out or cut out right here, just use those keyboard shortcuts and you can trim all of this up. So I'm kind of just eyeballing, looking at the dead space, and you can again just go through it and shorten that up. This part can be a little annoying, but if you cut out several minutes and if you cut out all your bad takes, then this is a really good use of time. Now, the other thing too is if you're trying to deliver a point and you mess up, maybe you talk over yourself, or maybe you say the point incorrectly, or maybe you just think of a better way that you want to communicate a point that you're trying to make. Like imagine for a moment that this section right here is me flubbing a take. And then this section right here is the good take, right? What I'll normally do is I'll be like, okay, this is take number one. This is take number two. I know take number two is better. So I'll just put a cut here, and then I'll essentially just get rid of that first take. And what's great about CapCut and a lot of the other editing programs is a lot of this stuff is just click and drag to remove some of the bad parts. And if you make a mistake, just so you know, if you make a mistake at any point in your edit, you can always undo that by looking for the undo option right here in CapCut, or you can do Command Z or Control Z on your keyboard, and that will undo the last edit that you did. So get used to using the undo option. That is such a powerful keyboard shortcut when you are editing, because oftentimes I'll either edit something too quickly or I won't get it correct, and then I'll have to undo it in order to make it right. Yeah, so good question. Humble Viewpoints asking, will that result in a jarring cut? The answer is it can. So it just depends on how you are sitting in frame. One thing, one thing to try and get good at as you're doing this is if you're delivering to camera, right? Maybe you're communicating a point in your video and you got your hand up, kind of like I have right now, and you're like, tip number two is going to be X, Y, and Z, but you screw that part up and you want to redo that part, I would recommend trying to be aware of your posture. How are you sitting? Where are your hands? And that way, when you try to do that second take of tip number two, your hands are in the same location, right? Don't sit back in your chair and try to deliver the second version of that, or don't like lean over in a different direction. Try to be aware of where your body position is, because then that way when you do these cuts, it won't be so jarring. You won't be moving around on screen in a very jarring way that is like really obvious to the viewer. What you'll notice in a lot of YouTube videos, there are a lot of cuts. Some creators will deliver one sentence at a time, and there'll be a cut. Another sentence, another cut, another sentence, another cut. And that's a lot of cuts in their edit. And if their body is in different positions with every single delivery of each line, then they're going to be all over the place when the cutting happens in the edit. But it's a good observation, right, to be aware of that. And I'm certainly guilty of that in some of my videos. I'm cutting wildly, like I'm moving all over the screen, and it's not a pleasant viewer experience. So just be aware of your body position, to the best that you can be. It's not always easy or intuitive, but that's something to just work towards. So coming back to the edit, right, is like looking at all of these points where there's a lull, and if it makes sense to cut them out, cut them out. If it doesn't, then don't. There's no hard or fast rules on this. It's almost like using your best judgment. And oftentimes what you'll do is you'll make a cut right here and you'll trim it up. And then what I like to do is I immediately play it back to see how it sounds and to see if it's too jarring or not, or to see if it makes sense for there to be a brief pause or not. So oftentimes, you want to play it back to make sure that that's an appropriate edit to make. And then once you go through the whole thing and you do this light trimming, right? And you're weeding out all of the dead air, you're weeding out all of the mistakes. Like maybe this is me doing a bunch of ums and a bunch of ahs and not really getting to the point. Like you can trim all of that crap out. And then what ultimately you're left with after working through the whole timeline is a very trimmed down version of this raw A-roll clip. And you'll have a lot of cuts like this. It'll look kind of like super clunky right here because there'll be a lot of points where you've trimmed stuff out. At that point, if you want to, you can then highlight everything and then make it a compound clip. So you right click and then you do create compound clip. This is of course for CapCut. I suspect for other editing software, there's something similar where you're kind of like merging clips together. And then that will give you one continuous A-roll clip that you can then not have to worry about all of these different micro clips maybe getting moved or lost in the shuffle. So that's effectively pass number one, where you are taking care of the A-roll, you're setting the table, you're making sure you have a clean work environment from which to add on to. So at this point, you should watch the whole thing back and make sure that with all the cuts that you've just done, that it sounds good. The pacing is good. The energy is good. And make sure that you've actually cleaned up all of the bad takes and you've cleaned up all of the dead space that you want. Now, if this is all the editing you do, then that's fine. You don't have to really do much above and beyond this. As long as you feel like there's a lot of value in the video, you can keep your viewer entertained with simply what you're saying. But if you want to take it a step further, and this is going to be for folks who've been doing YouTube for a little bit and they want to maybe stretch their editing skills, here's where you can start adding in visual flourishes. So things like adding in text or adding in motion graphics or adding in B-roll. So pass number one is trimming things down. Pass number two, for me at least, is the more visual elements. So what I'll do is after I get done, I'll come all the way back to the beginning. And now I'll kind of start playing it back a little bit. And I'll say, what makes sense to include visually? And I will tell you, if you do the majority of the editing in your video, I think should be spent on your first 30 seconds. Just as important as the hook is, the way you deliver your hook for your video, the visual editing in the first 30 seconds is also important. So, communicate something captivating. Like if you've ever struggled with this problem, I know exactly where you're coming from. I've felt it as well. And in this video, I'm going to break down X, Y, and Z to make sure that you don't ever experience that ever again, right? That's your hook, your verbal hook. But it also helps to, if you can, come up with a visual hook. What are you showing in those first 15, 30 seconds to keep your viewer visually interested? What visual elements are you adding to supplement your verbal hook to make it more powerful? So if you have footage, if you have B-roll, like if maybe you're pointing to a pain point, if you have an example of someone experiencing that pain point, like Deb, for example, if Deb is talking about an inspection and her opening hook is like, this RV was about to be sold, but we found a $10,000 problem that forced the buyer to back out, right? Maybe that's her opening hook. Imagine now, what visuals would you show with that? You could show like a huge problem that the RV might have in a very quick succession, right? You don't want to give away the whole thing, but something to just tease what might be coming up later in the video, or just a brief example of a problem. And that way the viewer's like, oh shoot, I want to know what this issue is because I'm about to buy an RV and I want to make sure I don't fall into that trap of not noticing this problem that Deb found on that inspection. So think about that for your own channel, for your own niche, for your own video. What could you do to help tease the viewer to keep them to watch for longer? And by the way, Deb, thank you. I noticed you just joined as a channel supporter, so I appreciate you. Um, Let me just see if I've missed any questions really quick because I've been just blabbing for a while now here. Um, Monique says, for me, I send the audio into Audacity to clean it up and silence the audio on my A-roll. Yep, good call. Audacity is a pretty powerful and old audio treatment software. I haven't used it in a long time, but I know it's pretty popular. Yes, and this will be a video on demand on my channel later on. If you can't watch the full thing, no big deal. So, yeah, but thank you for the question. So at this point, right, maybe you're ready to add some visual flourishes to your video. You want to add some text to help reinforce some of the points that you're making. You want to add potential, almost like chapter markers, right? Because a lot of educational content creators will make videos where we're going to talk about three things and you kind of go through it in a very logical order. So, what's great about CapCut and other software as well is that you can create presets for some of these visual elements so that you don't have to remake all of these assets in future projects. And I will tell you, for the last 10 months of me editing, I didn't know this until recently. So for every new video that I would create, I would create brand new assets for it every single time, and that just took way too much time. So what's great about CapCut is you can come into your media tab here on the top, which I don't know if you can see that, but you can see these options here on the top left. There is a section for yours and for presets. And presets are pretty easy to save. So I'll just give you some examples of presets that I've used. So we'll pull this one, and this is the title screen that I've created, and I've saved it as a preset. So watch what happens here. A black background comes in from the left. Text comes in from the left, text comes in from the right. And you can use, and then there's a bit of a fade out with some motion, right? So this could be an example of when you're transitioning from your intro into tip number one, right? Or from tip number two to tip number three, right? Or anytime that you want to have a visual break in your video to help augment what is essentially a structural break in your video. So I call this a title screen because it's really like moving to the next part of the video. So that's just an example. And I'll show you what this looks like when you make it. So with this particular one, all it is, yeah, no worries, Don. Thanks for coming. All it is essentially a black background that's animating in, and I use keyframes to animate it in. And then I just have two different text boxes. And in this case, I just have placeholder text, but of course you can manipulate and edit that all you want to make it relevant for your video. And then I have down here different sound effects. So maybe what you don't hear, let me see if I can play this back. Let me know if you have the audio for this as I play it back. I don't know if that came through on the stream, but there's a little bit of audio that plays, little swoosh noises, little click noises to help supplement the visuals that are happening on the screen. So that's pretty much it. Okay, no audio, no worries, Deb. But you can see the audio clips down here, and you can see the text box, and you can see the black background. All of that is essentially a compound clip that lives right here. And then once you have all of these assets essentially timed correctly, you can right click on this, and then you can save it as a preset right here. So for you guys, as you're editing your next video, if you're coming up with some kind of animated text in your video, or maybe a title screen or a lower third, or just any kind of visual that you're building for that video, if you feel like that's something you might reuse or repurpose in a future video, you can save it all as a compound clip, and then you can save it as a preset, and that will show up right here. And that way you can label it. And then in future videos, you can pull in that preset and just modify it, tweak it a little bit to use it again in your future videos. And what's great about this is if you kind of dial it in a little bit, you'll create a lot of consistency from video to video in terms of how your videos appear from an editing perspective. So this is one example. Here's another example. This is called a lower third. And I'll just let this I'll show you how this works. So what's happening here is we have this black gradient that comes up from the bottom, and we have lower third text that comes up from the bottom as well. And this would again be if you're really trying to emphasize a key moment in your video. You can use a little bit of text to help reinforce what you're saying. So very low effort, low friction, and it's just a great visual element to help break up what would otherwise be a static talking head picture. I'll just show you one more here. Let's see. Oh, this one's kind of cool. So this one is to break up again, just like a straight A-roll shot of me talking. If you have something that you want to communicate in more detail and you want to pull more text on the screen all at once, this is transitioning from A-roll to what is essentially a white background with text appearing on the screen, and then me much smaller on the right side. So I'm still there visually. You can still see me and connect with me, but you're also drawn towards the text that's coming up on the screen. And I'll show you what this looks like with all the different assets. I've got I've got my A-roll clip, which is right here, and it is masked and shrunk down a little bit and positioned on the right. I've got my text right here, which of course you can manipulate and edit. And then I've got my white background as well. And that's pretty much it. There's not a lot going on here, but it does serve to break up the visual monotony and to help reinforce certain key points that you're trying to make in your video. So I show you these as examples of different visual elements that you can layer into your videos at relevant points to help just break up what might otherwise be a static shot of you just talking. Now, of course, because I'm an education channel, a lot of my communication is straight talking head. Um, if you're in a different niche, like, Deb's niche, for example, she's probably showing a lot of B-roll of some of the vehicles that she's inspecting, right? I would imagine Prodigal might be showing B-roll of some of the tanks and some of the fish and some of the other things related to his interest on his channel. Rachel might be showing things related to her plants, or the rooms that the plants are housed in, or some of the other items that are helping to keep the plants alive. So it just depends on your niche. And of course, you can, if you have B-roll like that you want to reuse over and over again, you can save those as presets. And that way you don't have to pull them into every single project. They just live right here in CapCut for you to grab quickly and easily. So that's text. And there's also ways, like I mentioned, to save B-roll, like actual footage, as presets. And you can, of course, layer that in when and where needed. Um, as far as B-roll goes, that can be a bit of a challenge sometimes to acquire. I'm curious what you guys are using. Put it in the chat. What do you use for B-roll right now? How do you acquire maybe like stock images or stock video? I use Canva, and Canva's not amazing, but it can get the job done. So let me show you what that looks like. I actually have let me find it. I've got a whole project in Canva just for B-roll. Okay, so Monique uses Canva and Envato. Cool. How do you like Envato? I'm curious. I haven't used it. So here's my B-roll project in Canva. When I click on that, this pulls me into my project that has all of these different video clips that I've pulled in from Canva. And so at any point in time, I can come in here, and if any of these are relevant to the video that I'm making, I can simply just dump it. I can export it. So a lot of these are people working or doing an activity, and I'll just layer this in as I'm speaking in my video. I think these are all high def 1080p video clips. And so, you can grab these, put them into your project, layer them above your A-roll, make them full screen, and then that will serve as, again, more visual diversity. Humble Viewpoint says Descript has a huge B-roll library. I didn't know that, actually. I'd be curious how you like Descript, because I've seen some mixed reviews on it. Although I think its primary function is to help out with like the trimming that I mentioned earlier. And then Monique says Envato more for videos, but you might go to Storyblocks. Yeah. Okay. And then other times too, by the way, it might behoove you guys to capture your own B-roll. Maybe it's B-roll of you doing something, right? You got to like stage the camera and then, film yourself doing the activity. Or it might be just like an environmental shot. So it just depends on the content that you're making. But for me, I'm usually just communicating talking head and trying to show some visual element to support what I'm communicating. But here's how you might look for B-roll in Canva for those of you who haven't done this yet. I will just make a brand new, let me get rid of that. So I got like a blank thing here. And what I'll do is in Canva, I'll come over to elements and I'll just type in. So say, for example, I'm telling a story in my video about somebody being frustrated. Maybe they're frustrated at the YouTube content creation process. I might do something like frustrated working person. And then I'll make sure I have video selected. And then I've got these different options down here. So here's a woman who's clearly frustrated working at her computer. I'll just kind of watch through it, see if this fits my vibe. And if I like it, then I'll make it full screen. And then I will just, of course, export it out. And that's basically it. And then you have that movie file. You can dump it into your project. You can trim it down in your project to make sure that it lines up correctly with what you're communicating. And then that's pretty much it. So Monique just used this one. That's pretty funny. Of this exact woman here. That's really funny. But yeah, that's a good way to like quickly, I think, try to get footage. Some of the B-roll in here is good-ish. Some of it's not so great, but there is a lot to pick from. I mean, you can see I've typed in frustrated person working, and I get a lot of people who look kind of sad, right? This guy in particular, he's not having a good day. Um, but yeah, I think oftentimes B-roll like this, when someone sees it, they're probably like, yeah, that looks like stock footage. And so you might take a hit on credibility. But the more unique B-roll, the better probably. But for newer people, I wouldn't worry. You can certainly get away with using stock B-roll. Um, that's just my humble opinion on that. Curious if you got how you guys feel about stock footage. So that's how I get my B-roll. I haven't used any other platforms, but there are a lot out there. And then, of course, you just drag that B-roll into your timeline and you position it and you trim it. And then you kind of play it back, make sure it feels good, it fits good, and you're off to the races. So that's the second pass, is those initial visual elements, which is text overlays, maybe doing a split screen with yourself and with text, maybe doing like that background I mentioned where you're smaller in the corner with more text on the screen, and then adding in some B-roll here and there where it makes sense. But this whole part, this whole second pass that I'm referring to, this can be time consuming. This for me is probably the most time consuming part of it. So just be careful with not doing too much and not just going down the rabbit hole and over editing. Because what you might find is you put in all of these hours and that video doesn't perform better or worse than other videos with a lot less editing. But that's sort of how I think about it. Pass one is to trim, pass two is to add those visual layers. And then pass three is going to be the audio portion of it. So when you have maybe different text coming on the screen, if it's animating on the screen, you can add different audio sound effects to it. So in CapCut, they do have a pretty big library of sound effects. You can go into audio here, and then you'll notice there are your own saved ones. So if you have your own saved sounds that you want to pull in, you can do that. But if you're new, you're probably not doing that. You can come into sound effects down here, and you can see they have a ton of different categories for different sounds. Let me make this full screen. There you go. And then you can save these as favorites, which is great. So if you're using the same sounds frequently, which I kind of recommend because again, it creates some consistency, then you can favorite them by clicking the little star, and then they will show up as your favorites, which is great. So once you find a sound that you want to use, you just simply drag it onto your timeline and you're good to go. And then you just have to position it. And I think in terms of sound effects, one thing that a lot of newer folks might not think about is that the lower the volume, the better, because you don't want your sound effects to overpower what you're communicating or maybe get in the way of your talk track. So I usually will position it first to make sure it's positioned correctly, and then I will come in and I'll dial the the volume down quite a bit. Because at the end of the day, I think a well edited video, both visually and with audio, is something that the viewer doesn't even notice. They don't really notice the edits. They know that they like what they're seeing and what they're hearing, but they don't really actively or consciously notice the sound effect or the visual. I mean, of course they're going to notice the visuals, but um you know what I'm trying to say, right? It's like it should be more subconscious. It should be more of a feeling that they get from the video. So that's my 2 cents there on sound effects. Now, there's a lot of sound effects to think about. There's like whoosh sounds to help create attention when something is animating into the screen. There are pop sounds. There's all kinds of different sound effects. There's risers, which creates some tension and movement. So if you're in CapCut, I would just recommend poking around with some of these items and seeing what feels good for different things in the videos. Now, one thing I didn't mention that you can also do during your visual pass are things like transitions. So, for example, if you're transitioning from, let's just cut this right here. We'll make this a compound clip. You'll notice as we play this here, it's a quick cut from the talking head to this new visual here. But if you want to add a transition to maybe um, add some more visual diversity to that changeover from one scene to the next, CapCut has a lot of transitions built in. Actually, it's one of the more powerful softwares out there for transitions. You can do that, and I'll show you how to do that. So I'm gonna actually take this clip here, and I want this clip to transition into this clip. Now they're on two separate tracks, so transition will not work. So what we have to do is take this one and make it a compound clip. And now they're both on the same track. So again, just to show you right here, here's what it looks like as we're transitioning. It's a very abrupt cut, which still works, by the way. This isn't bad. This is actually, pretty common. But if you want to make it a little smoother, I'm going to show you this comparison to transition. I use this all of the time. You just click and drag. And now what you'll see is there's this white bar that transitions through the frame and it sort of reveals the next clip. So this is using a transition. This is just one example. We'll play it back here for you. Three things in today's video. So kind of cool, right? It's a pretty cool effect. I really like that comparison one. It's one of my favorites. I use it all the time. But there are a lot of different transitions in CapCut that you can play with. I'll show you this drop down one as well. Three things in today's video. And we'll do like this blur one. Three things in today's video. So some of them are more subtle, some of them are more exaggerated. And you can certainly pair sound effects too with some of those transitions to, again, just add a little bit more spice and flair to the video, but certainly not required. So I would say for newer folks, transitions are great, but don't overdo it. And my rule of thumb is use a transition when you're transitioning from a shot, like when you're transitioning from wildly different shots. So in this case, it's the A-roll of me talking and then transitioning to this shot here where it's essentially a white background with text and me much smaller on the right. That's a pretty drastic difference visually. So a transition might be a good use there. But I would say if you're transitioning from one talking head bit to another talking head bit, a transition doesn't always make a lot of sense, at least in my opinion. If you guys disagree or agree with that, let me know in the comments. Let me just take a quick look at the chat, see if I've missed anything. Okay, good. Health and wealth, welcome. Good to see you. Okay. The next item, again, this is a little more advanced if you want to add a little bit more movement to your A-roll clips. You've probably seen a lot of people do these zoom ins and zoom outs. I can show you what that looks like here as well. So let's imagine for a moment we want to do a zoom in over this part right here. So if this is like a very important point that I'm making in the video and you don't want to use text, but you just want to emphasize the point, you can use keyframes to do a zoom in to sort of reinforce that what I'm saying is important. So let me show you how to do that. The first thing you'll want to do is move your playhead to the beginning of the part where you want that motion to take place. Then you'll add a keyframe for position for scale. Okay, you can think of scale as size essentially. And right now we are at 100% of our frame. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go to the very end of it and we're going to add another keyframe for scale. And in this case, we want to make sure our keyframe is selected, which it is. We're going to basically, let's do 120%. So you can see I'm quite a bit zoomed in, right? Now what's happening in between these two keyframes is this zooming effect. So right here, we're at 100%. And as we progress through, it's zooming in to 120%. So let me play that back so you can kind of see what it looks like. On YouTube. So if that's interesting to you, stick around. Let's jump in. All right. So it's pretty subtle. One other thing you can do to add some more professional looking to that is you can come into your it's one of these guys. One second, let me just find it. Oh, this one here. Show variable speed animation. So it's essentially Command K, right? So if you got your clip selected, you can do Command K, or sorry, Control K. And what you'll be able to see here are your two keyframes, and you'll notice there's a very linear progression between them, right? It's a straight line for the zoom. If you want to add a little bit more, I guess, visual flourish to that, you can come over here, make sure it's selected first, and you know it's selected because you can see the little teal indicator. Click this one right here on the right where it says auto curve, and then come and click the next one and do the same thing, auto curve. Now what you'll notice, it is no longer a straight line. It may be hard to see, but the line now has a bend to it, which means it's going to start slow and then the zoom will speed up, which is kind of a cool little effect. So for new folks, don't worry about this. This is more of an advanced feature when you're doing a zoom or a zoom in or a zoom out, but you can maybe notice the subtle difference when I play it back. So if that's interesting to you, stick around. So it started slow, very subtle zoom, and then it started to speed up. It started to ramp up as the zoom progressed. So if that's interesting to you, stick around. Let's jump in. All right, so that's another small editing tip that you can integrate for your A-roll clips just to create a little bit more movement. I'm sure you guys have noticed this all of the time when you watch other creators. It's a pretty popular tip. So again, though, thinking about the amount of time that you're spending, that can also be pretty time consuming to work through the whole project and to add those little keyframes in. So that in itself could be a whole other pass, right? So revisiting pass number one is about trimming everything down. Pass number two is about adding your visual flourishes like your animated text, your title screens, your lower thirds, your split screens. And then pass number three, and then also your B-roll, right, for pass number two. And then pass number three could be using those keyframes for your zoom ins and your zoom outs for any other A-roll that you have that hasn't already been manipulated with something like animated text or motion graphic. Good. Thanks, Deb. I appreciate that. Deb is loving it. So there's a lot that can go into it. And I hope I'm not like overwhelming any newer folks out there. But this is just some of the stuff that I have learned over the last 10 months of doing my edits. But again, coming back to my original point, you don't have to do any of this stuff. You really don't. I mean, I've seen videos of just a straight talking head for 20 minutes and that's it. And they get tons and tons of views. It's because what they're saying is really powerful and it's connecting with people and it's important and it's really helpful. So, however many hours you're spending doing your editing, try to think of a minimally viable version of that and then repurpose all of those saved hours to coming up with better ideas for your videos, because the ideas are, I think, 80% of what makes the video successful, not the editing. But anyways, that's a high level overview. Hopefully that wasn't too much for the short period of time here, but let me know if there's any questions or anything that's come up. Um, Rachel says, do a live edit with me. Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about that. I've done a live where I've like edited thumbnails, like created thumbnails. So maybe that's a future live I could do, is like actually do a real editing session in one of my videos. And if people have questions as I'm going through it, I could try to answer those. That's a great idea. The Simple Living channel has a question. How do you get clips to show up as fast forwarding? I think I know what you mean. Are you talking about like a clip that's sped up like 2 or 3 times speed? Is that what you're asking? Okay. Let me show you how to do that. So let's, for example, this is all 1x speed, right? It's just the regular raw footage. But imagine we have a part of the video that we want to speed up to like 10x speed, right? We're like showing something and it really has to be quick. What you'll do is you got to actually trim the video. So you'll take your key command here is Control B on Mac, and then maybe this is where we want to end it. So this is the section right here where we want to speed this up. In CapCut, it's really easy. Once you have this part selected, all you got to do is come up to speed here on the top right. Oh, actually, you know what? Sorry, I'm not even sharing. Let me go back. If this is the section right here, you guys, that you want to speed up, then all you got to do is make sure it's highlighted. First of all, it's selected. Then you come up to speed over here on the top right, which you might not be able to see. It's kind of cut off on the stream, but it's on the top right. You click on speed, and then you'll see this slider right here. And this is 1x speed right here. This is 2x speed. This is 5x. This is 10x, and this is like 100x speed. So it's not a linear slider, but let me get rid of my logo. Hold on. There, that should help. So you see how as I'm moving the slider to the right, the speed increases. So if you want to make it 5x, you leave it there, and you'll notice how much smaller the clip got, right? The clip shrunk in size because it's no longer, you know, 1x speed, it's now 5x. So now as I play this back, you can see how quickly I'm moving because it's now 5x speed. So I will do that periodically, and I'll actually slow things down too, if it makes sense. But in CapCut, it's pretty simple to do. Does that answer the question? Humble Viewpoint says really valuable. Thank you. So you guys let me know what software are you using for your editing. Put it in the chat. I'm curious if there's a lot of you out there that are using CapCut. CapCut was the first thing that I started using, and I just haven't looked back. I've tried DaVinci back in the beginning of the year when we were all worried that CapCut was going to get banned because of the TikTok ban. But I started to, I think once that got delayed, right, then I said, screw it, I'll just stay in CapCut. 60 plus and Sophie says CapCut and sometimes Premiere Pro. Yep. Premiere, I think, has been sort of the GOAT for a long time. CapCut as well for simple living. Cool. Camtasia. Ooh, Monique, Camtasia. And I haven't heard of Corel Video Studio. That's interesting. But I know of Camtasia because I know Rob the Maritimer. For a long time, his channel was focused on Camtasia tutorials, and he still uses Camtasia for all of his editing. So there's a very kind of like, I guess, vocal and core Camtasia user base. But I haven't heard of Corel Video Studio. Yeah, I think that's a great observation. Like CapCut's pretty easy to use. It's pretty easy to get around. I even found when trying to use DaVinci that it was a little bit clunkier for me, and maybe because I hadn't spent enough time with it. But CapCut just seems a little bit more intuitive, a little more user friendly, but it also does lack in certain departments. You don't have as many, I think, audio editing features. There's a lot of like, you're kind of stuck with some of the stock motion graphics and transitions. You really can't create your own. But yeah, pros and cons to both. I think eventually I'll probably move into DaVinci, but actually I might end up editing or outsourcing my editing before I get that far. I'm curious to know too, has anyone in the chat used an editor in the past? Has anyone considered outsourcing your editing? I know that can be a big relief for folks when they get to a point where they can afford an editor. If they're making enough money from the YouTube channel, it's one of the first things people will outsource is editing because, hey, if you can take several hours a week or per video, 10, 20 hours off of your plate, then yeah, why not, right? So you have DaVinci, but you haven't used it yet. Yeah. It's a little intimidating. I've watched a bunch of tutorials on it and I just didn't dedicate the time to sit down and do it. Because I'm so much quicker in CapCut, and for me to like sit down and try to edit a video in DaVinci from start to finish, I'd probably get frustrated and be like, I'm just going to do this in CapCut. Yeah, Deb's, I think it would be great to outsource. Yep. Um, Monique says, I think my OCD makes me nitpicky. Are you thinking like relinquishing control to an editor, like giving them the creative freedom to do what they would do? And then you might not necessarily like how they edit your video. I think that's a very valid concern. I feel the same way. I think if I did end up hiring an editor, here's what I would do. I would probably make them watch like 3 videos of mine where I really like the editing, and I'd be like, you need to edit this way. Like use this style as like the framework to edit future videos. And, hopefully they can match it as much as possible. But I'm with you, Monique. I feel the same way. Like there's certain things I like to do in my videos. I like to also include memes and gifs sometimes in my videos. And I don't know, depending on where your editor is from, like if they're from a different country, they may not get that same kind of humor that you would get for your video. You know what I mean? So like it might not match. Rachel says, I guess only if I have a talking head video, an editor don't know my plant's history. Yeah. I think some niches too, to have an editor, you really have to help them understand what it is that they're seeing. And there's a lot of context that might go behind it. So it could still be a lot of work at the end of the day. But if you end up working with an editor for a long time, they may get to know you and your channel, your preferences, and like they might get to know a little bit more about your niche too as a result. So that could be a benefit. But yeah, I hear you on that, Rachel. Yeah. So 60 plus and Sophie says, I love using CapCut, but with the scare that we had recently, I feel like I need to learn to use another tool. So it's so funny about that. I think it was the beginning of the year, wasn't it? It was like January. I think when we had this scare about TikTok getting banned, and then it got kicked down the road like 6 months. I think they're like a 6 month delay to try and find a buyer or something like that, or for them to develop. I forget what the scenario was, but We're now approaching 6 months, I think. So, does anyone know? Has anyone been keeping up on that news? Because I haven't been paying attention, and I feel like I probably should. Oh, man. Okay, so Monique, you had a bad experience, it looks like. You told them what you needed, you gave the editor 5 videos, and what you got back was trash. So, sorry to hear about that. That's unfortunate. I hope you didn't have to pay a whole lot, but, I feel like that's a common experience for people who are trying to find editors is they'll have to work through several different editors to try and to finally find somebody that they actually like and that they want to work with. So, but I have not gone down that road myself. So, if and when I do, I will be sure to give you guys the experience. Yep. So, Deb, same thing. Two YouTube friends hired editors and then fired them because it didn't work out. Yeah, that's too bad. It feels to me like there's just a ton of editors out there. There's a ton of people who are, I don't know about you guys. Do you guys get emails from people who want to edit your videos and for people who want to design your thumbnails and people who want to do your SEO? Like I get comments on my videos, I get emails every single day. It's almost like they're a dime a dozen. And that's probably means the quality is pretty low, I would imagine. So I don't know. I don't know if I'd ever respond to somebody who's emailing me. I'd probably just take a referral from someone who's actually had a good experience with their editor. Vetfather has a question. How much did you spend on CapCut? I think I paid $90 for a full year, and I ended up buying that back in February of this year. It was $89 or basically $90 for 12 months. And that gets you all of the whatever pro CapCut Pro features, which I end up using. So I think it's worth the investment. It's actually pretty cheap. I think DaVinci, what is DaVinci like 300 bucks, but you get it in perpetuity. There's no annual license for it. Rachel is she's pushing her product on me. Maybe it's time to buy some plants. I'm terrible at plants. I would murder every single one of them. In fact, my girlfriend Erin, she is the plant caretaker in the house, and she's on top of it. But we still have a hard time keeping things in good shape. But yeah, thanks for trying. I'm just not good. I'm not good at plants. Ooh, Monique, I like to batch record 6 videos a week. Yeah, you know what's wonderful about that too is if you get a good editor and you can batch record a bunch of videos and you just send them off to the editor and you don't really have to think all that much. You get them back, you give them your feedback, and then before you know it, you've got videos to post to your channel. But 6 videos, that's impressive. How many videos do you post per week, Monique? 60 plus, and Sophie says I pay $10 a month for CapCut. Wasn't sure if I'd like it. Yeah. I think I was doing that too. It was whatever their monthly subscription was, and then I said, screw it. I might as well do the full year because I know I'm going to be using it for a while. Okay, 3 videos per week. That's great. I used to do 2 videos per week, and now I'm doing one. You got 2 channels? Oh my gosh. More power to you. I don't know how you do it. I can barely handle one channel and I do it full time. What are your channels about? And by the way, if anyone else has questions on anything editing related, throw them in the chat. If you want a demo on something, I'll do my best to show it if I know how to do it. Again, I'm no expert, but if there's different things you've seen in a video, like if there's a video that you've watched lately and there's an edit in there and you want us to take a look at it, I'd be happy to pull it up. and we can maybe try to replicate it. Ah, okay. So Monique's got 2 channels, self-publishing and an expat digital nomad. Cool. Yeah, Rachel, I'm with you on that. Still struggling to make videos I enjoy while also appealing to the algorithm. It is a balancing act. It is a balancing act. But I think I think it's all in the packaging. I think the packaging is the appeal to the algorithm. Well, the topics also are part of the packaging, but maybe it's like, novel spins or unique spins on things that you're passionate about to appeal to the algorithm while also staying true to the topics that you like. But yeah, I think everyone has to balance that in a way. Is there anything anyone's been stuck on when editing a video? Maybe a recent video that you've been working on that you couldn't figure something out? Yeah, just drop a comment. Or if we think we're good, we can just end the stream. If you guys have any more questions, let me plug my community really quick. Well, I have a captive audience here. So, because editing does come up a lot, actually, in conversation in my community. So, for those of you who don't know, I've got this really cool group of people that I get to hang out with every single week. And we chit chat about a lot of different YouTube related topics. So here's my school community. It's called the Midlife Creator Community. It is absolutely free to join. I'll put the link for it in the chat if anyone's interested. But in my classroom, in my community, I actually have some mini lessons and tutorials, and a lot of them are editing related. So if this is interesting to you, feel free to join, send me a DM, let me know what you're up to. And then if there's things that you need help figuring out with respect to editing in CapCut, I could probably make a quick tutorial for you and then I'll house it in the classroom. But just as a quick PSA to my community, because we do talk about all things YouTube. And of course, editing comes up quite often because I know it's a bit of a pain point for a lot of people. So yeah, check the link in the chat if you're interested. Thank you, Deb. Okay, question came up, or actually, Humble Viewpoint had a correction for us. Let's see. Just to clarify, DaVinci is free. Yes, the studio version is 300, and the free version is pretty powerful. Yeah, I think probably most newer people starting can definitely use the free version, right? I would suspect, and CapCut is also free too. The catch, could you describe what you are doing now in the live? Now I'm just chilling with you guys. But earlier we did an editing tutorial. I kind of just went through my editing workflow in CapCut, how I do different passes to get through an edit, hopefully in a more time efficient manner. And maybe just to answer some questions that people had along the way. So the catch, if you have any questions on editing YouTube videos, let me know. Oh, you're asking what software I'm using. I'm actually using Ecamm Live. I haven't quite figured out OBS. OBS seems like a puzzle to me. What do you guys use if you do any live streaming, or if you've experimented with a streaming software? Because I have I have OBS downloaded and installed, but I haven't quite gotten it to work. Again, I probably haven't spent the time needed, but what I have found is that Ecamm for Mac users is really straightforward. It's pretty easy to use. Hey, it's a wealthy life. Good to see you. Welcome. Deb, big fan of the community. Thank you. Thanks for the plug. uh, Yeah, so Rain's asking about the cost of Ecamm. So there's a 14-day free trial with Ecamm. That's what I did initially just to kind of feel it out. There's two tiers. One is 20 bucks and the other I have no idea, it's more expensive. I use the $20 per month version of Ecamm because I think it has everything I basically need at this point. What's cool about all of the different streaming services, including Ecamm, is that if you want to make YouTube videos, you can actually use Ecamm to make your videos. You don't need to use it just for live streams. So it's kind of multi-purpose, if you will. Of course, the primary use is for live streaming, but you can, if you have, say, for example, you're presenting out on visuals, like maybe you have a slide, you can use your Ecamm or OBS or whatever, and you can record locally on your screen and on your camera. And then that could be a YouTube video you post to your channel. And the good news there is there's really no editing to be done because it's all captured live while you're recording it. Yeah, humble viewpoint. I can't figure out OBS either. I think that's the biggest problem with OBS. It's free, which a lot of people love, but it's just the learning curve's a little bit higher there. Um, Health and Wealth is saying, Ty, I'm not sure if you turned on ads in YouTube settings next to your live video. I noticed you have to actually hit the monetize button. For me, I like to hit balance and let YouTube pick. Yes, actually, that's a good point. I disable ads during my lives. After the fact, I'll turn them back on. But when I'm live streaming, I don't put on any ads at all. Number one, because I don't get a ton of people joining, so it's like, what is it, pennies? And I just want to make a better experience for the viewers. Maybe that'll change in time. I don't know. Maybe my thoughts on that will evolve, but I think at least early on, in order to foster a more cohesive community and to make sure that I'm not sending you guys to watch some weird advertisement, that I just turn it off for the time being. But let me know, Health and Wealth, if you've done your live streams, if you keep your ads on and what the feedback has been. Um, Rachel, what about those who can only edit on their mobile phones? I do know someone, she'll be joining the community soon. Yeah, well, you can get CapCut on your mobile device. So CapCut, I think, is like super mobile friendly because it was originally built to support TikTok users. So I haven't used CapCut on my mobile device, but you can certainly download it for iPhone, for Android, and for tablets if that's their preference. Um, I don't know if DaVinci has. I would suspect not a mobile app, but CapCut definitely does. Yeah. Uh, yeah, none of us are doing it for free, but I don't know. There's a balance. I think we're all sort of evolving and learning as we go. But that's good. You haven't had anybody complaining about ads on live streams. I've joined plenty of live streams where ads get shown. So for me, it doesn't really take anything away from it. I totally understand and I get it. So, and if I like the streamer enough to join a live stream, then I'm happy to watch an ad or skip through the ad if it lets me. But yeah, I'm still new to live streaming, so I'm trying to find my own rhythm and try to figure it out. But yeah, any other questions or what's everyone else up to this weekend? Any YouTube projects, any videos you're making? Let me know. I'm curious what everyone's up to. I already know what Deb and Rachel are up to. Make us pay. I love it. See, that's the kind of support that's amazing, right? It's like you got viewers that really like your channel and they're like, "Cool, show me ads. I'll watch the ad." It's a wealthy life. I'm working on Adobe After Effects intro. Nice. How long have you been working in Adobe? And is the intro going to be for a YouTube video or like your channel or what's the intro going to be for? Or are you doing like an intro video to After Effects? And it's a wealthy life. Remind me, is it Dan or Daniel? If I'm remembering correctly from last week? I have a terrible memory, so hopefully I'm not mixing you up with somebody else. Okay, Rain, cool. Yeah, we're glad to have you in the community too. And by the way, for anyone also interested in the community, I'll just keep blabbing about it because I'm obsessed with my community and the people that are in it are amazing. We do host 2 weekly group calls. So if you like this style where everyone gets together and we chit chat about what we're up to and we try to problem solve for one another. Obviously, we're not doing it with me doing a live stream and you guys chatting. It's everybody on a Google Meet together. And you can raise your hand, you can come off mute, you can talk about what you're up to. And if you have a problem or if you have something that's working well, the group would definitely benefit from hearing you. So, Rain, if it fits your schedule, I would encourage you to jump on. Rachel's going to build a 20-gallon Hobbit terrarium. Okay. Yeah. That sounds like a lot of work. And you're documenting the whole thing, right, Rachel? Okay, so you're gonna learn After Effects. Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. Deb, good to see you. Have a good one. Health and Wealth is gonna make a few more videos and get in some more income before the end of the fourth. You're gonna show some ads, that's for sure. Talking head type videos, trying to get 4 or 5 videos done. Cool, cool. I love it. 2 videos on 6 places to live in Eastern Europe for 2000. So a total of 12 places. I don't know what you mean, Monique. Tell me more about that. That sounds interesting. And then Dan. Okay, good. I got your I got your name right. I feel good about that because I'm so bad at names. So bad at names, which is why I'm always saying your guys' names because it helps me to remember them the more I say it. Um, 5 to 10 second clip after my hook. Ooh, okay. So like a bumper, kind of like Think Media. I don't know if you guys know Think Media, but they have a little. You got to just press record. I think they call it a bumper, and it's like a second and a half. So it's like after the hook, but before the rest of the video. I like that. I don't have a bumper for any of my videos, but it does, I think, add some professional feel to it. Yep. Follow the sun journey. You're all new, so just learning CapCut and practicing with practice video. Yeah, absolutely. That's a great way to do it. Is just take some raw footage that you have and just mess around. Practice trimming, practice adding in some visuals if you want to. See what some of the different features in Cap or whatever software you're using does. But yeah, practice, 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 practice. Yes, well, join the club. I have become obsessed with YouTube and meeting fantastic people. That's been one of the best things about doing YouTube for me over the last 10 months. Isn't like actually making videos, but it's the people. And the more I'm spending time with my community, the more I'm just like finding so much joy and fulfillment in it. And it's not so much like the growth on my own channel, but there are people that are in my community that I've worked with directly who have way surpassed me in terms of views and monetization and like newsletter subscribers and products. So it's just really inspiring to be around people like that who are hustling, who are doing such great work. And as I see some of their first videos and then I'm watching their videos now, it's like they're just to the moon, right? They're just so miles ahead of where they were previously. And it's so cool to see people overcome these confidence issues or this like these uncertainty issues where you start out, you don't have any confidence, you don't really know what you're doing, you don't know what direction you want to go in, but then you see momentum and traction and you see growth and that starts to build confidence and you gain all this clarity around your mission and who you want to help. And yeah, there's still so much to learn, but it's really cool to see people start to find like they start to crystallize their vision a little bit more. I think that's been one of the most rewarding things for me to see. But yeah, don't underestimate the community aspect. If you're new to YouTube and you're just starting out, there's such a great community to be found really anywhere you look. And you just have to be a little assertive and dip your feet in and try to get to know people and try to understand what they're working on, and then in turn you'll find a support system and you'll find a group of peers and people that want to help you and vice versa. So great call out. Obsessed with YouTube. I think we all are. Uh, Sophie, yeah, good to have you. Thanks for joining. Hope you got something useful out of today's video. Appreciate you being here. Yes, I heard that too, Rachel. In psychology, people actually appreciate you saying their names. For me, it's a retention thing, but it also, I think, makes people feel seen and heard and like welcome, when you say their names. I'm really bad at doing it in person. I'm much better at doing it virtually, like calling on people in a group setting on Zoom or Google Meet or doing it here in the chat. It's so much easier. But if you put me in a room of people and I know their names, I don't know. I'm like a deer in headlights. It's really weird. Um, okay. So, Monique, you live in Poland and many want to leave the US. This short series is where you can live in Eastern Europe for 2000. Oh, okay. So you're helping people understand what the options are. I love that. It's so funny because I keep stumbling across people Americans who've left the country, who are finding better quality of life elsewhere, whether it's in Europe, whether it's in Southeast Asia. Um, One of our community members moved to France. She bought a stone house. She's incredible, and she's going to be renovating it and building a garden and doing all sorts of fun French things. But yeah, I feel like a lot of people are considering what it would look like to move out of the country and to have maybe a better quality of life. Yeah, Dan, finding friends on YouTube, man, it's sometimes it's hard, but I think once you get to understand the ecosystem and what's possible and what's out there, it's pretty easy to integrate, find people. Yeah, follow the sun journey. I concur. It's fabulous who are like-minded. We teach and support each other, and I love the communities all different ages with respect to each other's vision and voice. Yep, yep. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Well, I really appreciate you guys being here. It's been fun. I'm still learning how to do these live streams. So if you guys have any thoughts or feedback on future topics, lessons, things that you might want to learn about, I think what I want to do is probably try to bring a good lesson to each live stream and then also keep it open for Q&A. But if anything comes to mind while we're doing these, if there's something you want to see, if you want me to jump into the analytics, if you want to jump into Canva or any other tool or system that might be useful for you to see, let me know because I love doing these kind of like screen shares where I can show you the stuff that I've worked on. um, I'm all about trying to provide value and be helpful in any ways that I can. Of course, I'm no expert. I'm not perfect. I don't know everything. I'm just a simple guide of someone who's been doing YouTube for the last 10 months. So, but yeah, let me know if there's things that you want to see. Be happy to take that feedback. Leave a comment below after the stream if you're feeling inclined, or hit the like button, and I'll do all that fun stuff. But I'll try to do these every Thursday at the same time, and we'll probably do at least an hour. But if we go longer than that, that's cool too. Um, yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Very nice of you to say, and I hope so too. I hope so too. So, well, good to see you guys. We'll call it a day. We'll leave it here, and I'm looking forward to talking to you all soon. So, have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, and I'll see you on the other side. Thanks all.